My name is Megan Fitzmartin, and I wrote Justice League meets RWBY.
Alright, so I know how originally it was a comic.
Correct.
How was the process of adapting that?
So I love adaptations. I'm a huge fan of the comic and wanting to make sure that, like, I believe in the different mediums existing within their own space in a really beautiful way, and so we wanted to take the things that did exist, that did work for both types of mediums, like comics and animation, while still letting it be its own thing. So we looked at the comic book and we figured out the different types of pieces that we wanted to take, but also recognizing, like, for a lot of people, this will probably be the first time that people see RWBY, or people will see the Justice League, and wanting to, like, give them that sort of inroad in a way that, like, sometimes it's harder for comics because comics, you know, the first issue is 22 pages and you have to, like, hook a reader or not. So keeping all of those things in mind, we got started to try and do the best thing that we could.
And also when it comes to kind of the powers of the reviewers, they're very specific, so it's very difficult, like, finding them compatible, because I know some people have had planes and shoes. So what was your experience with that? That was
very important, very necessary. Even just writing the thing, I had to figure that out before we even got into writing the script of it, because I wanted it to be as clear as possible, not just for, like, viewers, but for me specifically, so that I knew what I was doing. So I wrote, like, within the early days of developing it, I wrote up, like, this spreadsheet that I had taped to my computer, so that I could be like, I could always reference, like, okay, it is this thing, it's this specific power that does this specific thing, and that is the rules that I'm going off of. And so making sure that the rules were as specific as they could be, not just for the movie, but for me as well.
And you also have a spreadsheet, same for the Justice League?
Oh yeah, no, it was for both of them. I had all Team RWBY and Team Justice on my spreadsheet, being like, all right, I need to be able to match both.
So I'm curious, building on that balance. Now, for someone like me, being honest, I would know Justice League far more than I knew RWBY.
Absolutely.
How do you balance telling a story by going, I understand some of the audience may know one and not the other, but yet I want to make sure they both get proper amounts of time. And that's got to be a real challenge.
Part of that, yeah, absolutely. Like, part of that, what ended up being, is why we separated the teams into different groups, so that for the folks that knew RWBY, they would get to know the Justice League through that team member that they would know. Same thing for the Justice League. They would be able to, like, introduce new viewers to RWBY through through Superman. You get to know RWBY. Through RWBY, you get to know Superman. So in that way is sort of why we ended up pairing the characters as we did. And then also being really intentional with the dialogue, so that, like, if I had a question about the world or somebody had a question about DC, like, making sure that we were very clear in the dialogue in an organic way, that, like, oh no, these kids, but, like, the Justice League would have questions about this world, so we can actually answer this stuff, and RWBY would have questions as well. So it lent itself a lot easier, I think, than any of us had anticipated, to introducing each team to each other.
Oh, perfect.
I don't know if your piece was how exactly did their worlds come up?
What a good question that I hope we find out in another movie. What a head scratcher.
I'm curious about team building, though, for the Justice League.
Yeah.
We have core characters,
Yep.
but there's a lot of other possibilities.
Yeah.
How do you narrow down who makes the cut?
That's a great question. So we have the core characters, right? It's almost always Superman, Batwoman, Wonder Woman. Know those, great. So for the other four, I looked at who I knew and who I loved. Jessica Cruz was one that I knew that I really wanted to use because I love her and I don't think that she's used it enough. So I was like, hello, I would like to. And really brought it to DC and was like, these are my reasonings that I think that these would be really good. Also just thinking off of the RWBY girls and RWBY, Team RWBY and Team Juniper, which is the other team in the movie as well, how does everyone sort of relate to each other, and making sure that we had pieces that would match together. So that's, I both went from what I know and like, but using that knowledge to pair them with the RWBY girls in a way, or the RWBY men, in a way that was cohesive and made sense.
Okay.
So, basically what you're saying is, you found like almost a mentor
Absolutely. I mean, they are both mentoring each other, and they're both mentees. I think, like, Weiss has a lot to teach Batman in the same way that, like, Superman has a lot to teach RWBY. And so it was more coming from a space rather than mentor-mentee. What is their shared experience, and how do they relate to these characters? And that, I think, like, if they were teenagers in a random room, who would be the ones that would find each other and be like, oh yeah, no, me too. And that is sort of ended up what happened. And I'm really pleased with the group that we got.
Go ahead if you have another one.
I'm stumped.
That's okay.
Oh.
How are you guys doing? How's your con been?
Oh, it's
Good?
busy, but good, thank you.
Good.
I was telling her, it's not as intense as the big one, but, you know,
It's a good, like,
it warms you back up to get used to it, because you know that's coming.
My first presser.
No way!
Yeah.
Congratulations! That's exciting. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay.
I had my set of questions, but I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah. I think that's the best version of it, is like, as long as you know what you want to, like, what you want to hit, and then you're like, okay, well, I can explore over here as well. It's all fun. And how many is this, what presser is this for you?
Oh, for this show, this is my third one, thankfully.
Oh, no way.
We've had others getting covered, but we got several today, and then we're presenting one ourselves at the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oofa doofa. Well, I hope you get a lot of sleep tonight.
Yeah, I have to drive back to Phoenix tomorrow, so.
No. You have to get a lot of sleep then. That's such a long drive.
Yes.
Oh. Well, best of luck.
Thank you. But I'm used to it after all this time, so.
Yeah, sure. How is that drive? How long is it?
About 5.5 hours.
5.5. From Anaheim or from?
Yeah, Buena Park, Anaheim.
Buena
Sure.
Park. Okay.
We're gonna go down through San Diego and on the way. It's more scenic and it's a lot easier.
That's
Plus,
nice.
10 was a mess coming over there.
Really?
A lot of construction and all that, and I just like
Oh, that makes sense. I was coming from the LA area, and like I was like, oh, it'll only take me an hour. No. 2 hours minimum. But why?
I don't know how they deal with traffic here sometimes, you know.
I'm very lucky in that, like, I tend to stay in the area that I'm in. I'm in the valley, and so I like don't ever have to go over the hill. And then when I go over the hill for things like this, I'm like, this is why I don't go over the hill. This is too much for me.
We had to go from last week. We were in town to see the kids.
Yeah.
And we had to go up to Ontario from Buena Park.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, why is it an hour and 40 now, but in the evening it was 35 minutes?
No, that is exactly what it is, where I was like, but it should